But before we go into some of those details, just a couple really quick notes of clarification, because I know some people have said that these photos are photoshopped of Harry and Lily. No, they are not. You can clearly see that at least some of what people think is an alternative color on Harry's arm or a second arm is actually the arm of another human being. And that sometimes when it comes to taking pictures, you get either camera flares or you get somebody who's walking in partially to light and not. And so I think the sort of quote unquote different colors you see on Harry's shirt are the results of actual natural reactions to taking pictures, not because they are photoshopped. Why would you do Photoshop and do such a crummy job of it? That just doesn't really make a ton of sense. Obviously, people are saying as well, oh, that's not Harry. I'm like, of course, guys, that is Harry. I can't see how it would be anybody else. And also a couple of people have mentioned how Lilibet looks like she's dressed too warmly for the day, because obviously it's in the middle of the July. It's like 90 degrees where I am and just doesn't seem to get any cooler, and I'm miserable half the day. But actually, it was only 68 degrees as a high that day. That's pretty low. Apparently, the parade started about noon, so that could be a little bit before the heat of the day even, so it could have been even in the mid to low 60s. That's pretty cold for Californians, to be honest, in the vast majority of cases. Apparently, when I mentioned this on Twitter, a lot of people had said it's been kind of a cold year there, about 10 degrees cooler than what they normally get. So in some instances, I would say, hey, yeah, Lilibet's perhaps dressed too warm. Honestly, though, I think she was just dressed for the weather. However, I will say, for Meghan Markle, who wanted to raise her kids in a modern way, she certainly is dressing her daughter a lot like Princess Charlotte, which you feel like is just another lame attempt to try to connect to the British monarchy and connect to Princess Charlotte, which you could exemplify as our first instance of hypocrisy here. Meghan Markle has told us time and time again how much she hates the British monarchy. Except if it just did everything that she wanted them to do, then it was fine. But she hates it otherwise. And she said she wanted to dress her child in a more normal way. She wants her kids to be normal. Yet the outfit, I'm sorry, it just really does look like something Princess Charlotte would wear, or something that Catherine would put Charlotte in. Catherine has always been very cognizant of how her children look, because she knows that the way her children are presented to the world is how they will be remembered for the ages. Catherine, you have to give her an enormous amount of credit. She wants to do the best job for her children. And when her children go up, look at the pictures of them taken in public and be happy and proud of them. Not going, oh my gosh, Mom, I looked terrible. I looked messy. I looked awful. No, Catherine, the children you could say almost look perfect. And that's not because Catherine expects her children to be perfect. I'm sure she can tell you exactly what their faults are. But what she wants to make sure they do is, because their pictures will be taken for the ages and remembered for years and years to come, she wants to make sure they look well and that they are proud of their pictures. And I think that's a wonderful thing of Catherine to do. But Meghan, she doesn't really want to be a part of the royal establishment. She wants to forge her own path. More power to you, honey, whatever you want to do. But when it comes to this instance, she clearly is going for a British look. I actually went to a 4th of July party and I saw a lot of little girls, and they were dressed in very, you could say, bold stars and stripes outfits. Very much, very, very patriotic. Now, granted, Lilibet is also a British citizen, but let's be frank, she's an American, guys. This girl has basically no connection to the British monarchy other than her dad, and her dad is adopting more of an American accent. And I have spent, I feel like, more time in the UK this year than Prince Harry has. I've been there about 3 weeks this year so far, between 3 separate trips. I'll go for a couple more days in September, and I think that's longer than Harry's been there, because when he goes, sometimes he goes there for like 24 hours, and I'm like, spend some time with your family, bud. Spend some time with your family. You don't know what might happen to your father, and you already missed your time with your grandmother, which I feel like you probably already regret, or you should if you don't already, missing out on this time with your grandmother. Because Harry could have been there the day before she died, but he decided not to go and visit her. Huge, huge regret. I think that will be pretty difficult for him. So that Meghan is going in that direction is just rather funny, considering the fact she wants to be this cool California mom. Yet, I will dress my kids like a British princess, because, I mean, she is a British princess, guys. If I believe it strongly enough and I see it, it is. And technically, it is true, but honestly, I don't call their kids a prince and princess, because I think it's silly. That title should mean something. And them being in California makes the title look ridiculous because they have no connection to the UK. This is a problem Charles and William need to address, is that if you have people wandering around with a British title, they should at least have somewhat, especially one as high as a prince and princess, should have somewhat, you could say, responsibilities or maybe even connection to Great Britain, not to California and Montecito. They're not the Prince and Princess of Montecito. They're supposedly the Prince and Princess of Sussex, and yet they've never been to Sussex. So that just looks a little silly. And the other bit of hypocrisy here is that Harry said in an interview that he finds that the First Amendment of the Constitution is bonkers. So go ahead and take a listen here.
I got so much I want to say about the First Amendment. I still don't understand it, but it is bonkers.
Okay, Harry, just so you know, this country is founded on the principle of freedom. I know, difficult concept, really, really difficult concept. That means that we should be able to share our thoughts, even including something like the earth is flat, or that there's no such thing as zebras, they're just horses with paint jobs, or any other inane, mostly harmless thought that you could have. You should be allowed to have it. It says basically we have the freedom of press, association, and religion. So that means you can go to any church you want. Just because people say bad things on Twitter does not mean that you should be able to restrict their rights, especially as a British prince. And then the hypocrisy of Harry, who doesn't understand the First Amendment of the Constitution, going to a 4th of July parade to exercise the rights and freedoms that were given to him because now he lives in the United States and is basically adopting an American persona. It just seems rather hypocritical of him to do so and seem to be celebrating the attendance.